I will bring in, because this is, part of your podcast with loss,
Hmm.
that those who experienced a loss didn't complete like that whole transfer, like didn't get the full brain changes. So they may have experienced some, but not to the same extent as if somebody had the baby and then following up at, 4 months, 6 months. So it's almost like the brain gets stuck.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Birth Story podcast. If you are joining for the first time today, I'm your host, Alexis C. Girl mom, angel mama to one of the sweetest boys in heaven, birth trauma and uterine rupture survivor, and former NICU mama. Here you will have the opportunity to ask and have your burning questions answered by professionals, feel connected to other women's experiences as we normalize the different aspects of this journey we are on as moms. The real and raw moments of healing are shared here as we navigate loss, embrace strength, and find hope again while learning to live after loss. Please note the topics discussed on this podcast are for educational purposes only. Please see your personalized medical professional if you have any questions or concerns that arise from listening, including diagnosis and treatment. Okay, well, welcome back to the Beyond the Birth Story podcast.
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited that I have you back in my space. And last time we talked all things kind of pelvic health and kind of that direction that you were going. And so today we're going to do a deep dive into something that I myself, you, and I'm sure a lot of other women know how important it is, which is maternal mental health. And so on the day that I release this episode, you actually have two coming out, and that is to correlate with Maternal Mental Health Week. There's lots of events going on that you're involved with, and then, your pelvic health. And so I'll have you introduce yourself again, just in case people are listening to this one first and not your other one. And then we can kind of get into all things mental health.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me again. People won't know how long we tried to get on this call. Technology has not been our friend for these sessions, but here we are. So, my name's Ashley Waterman, and I am based out of Lloydminster, Border City, Alberta, Saskatchewan. And I am a registered nurse. I've been practicing for 12 years now. Primarily, my background has been public health. And then I've also done some endoscopy, surgical as well. And I started my own private practice in 2021. I do it casually, and that is this pelvic hygge, where I am speaking with you guys today. And I offer pelvic health education. I found it was an area that is lacking. Most of the information is all about Kegels, and we know that Kegels are not, the end all be all of the pelvic floor. And so if you listen to the other podcasts with Alexa and me, you will see or hear, I guess, that not necessarily see. I do talk a lot with my hands, but um, you will hear, different components that go into the pelvic floor as well. So I do offer not internal pelvic exams, but the external component of doing a full body assessment and then giving exercises. And so we touched on a lot of that mind body connection and that awareness piece. And so it really does tie in with mental health. And so I just kind of built on my practice with exploring mental health and motherhood as well. And, I experienced it myself. I have three boys, so I do have my own, birthing experience in that perspective, as well as my nursing experience. And so currently, I am doing my nurse practitioner. I'm almost done. I will be done later this year. And so I'm really looking forward to building on that maternal piece as well, and, being able to prescribe and just different resources that additionally that I can offer right now. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. I find a lot of the sessions that I do or the education that I provide does focus so much. It's just like the basics of the pelvic floor. So then I always want to touch on the mummy side or the mental health side, and I
Mhm.
don't always get to do that because it's so much information that people receive as well. So yeah, I think today we're going to touch on mummy brain. So
Yes.
um, that's yes, affected us all, and what everybody thinks, a mummy brain, what comes to mind when we hear it. So just like blanking your mind, like
Mhm.
mushy, right? Where's my head at? Forgetting things. My brain isn't working well, right? So it's really what I hope to bring from today is really changing the narrative and what is actually happening to moms and why we experience that. So I took a course in the fall. It was 12 weeks, and it was on the neuroscience of parenting and perinatal mental health. So it did bring forth a lot of what I'll share today, but there's also a lot of unknowns. So um, what they have looked at so far, what's happening to the brain, but there's still a lot of missing pieces. So um, yeah, society, I guess we'll start there, and just that like, they've told us that mummy brain happens and everyone experiences it,
Mhm.
and we've also been told how men and women's brains are different. Um, so in reality, when they've looked at it, it's their brains actually aren't different. We are by biology and physically different with genitalia, but
Mhm.
really the brain, there isn't much difference between men and women. And so we also one thing, growing up, we build those differences with women do this and men do
Mhm.
this, women are better at something, men are better at something. And so it really comes down to our environments and what we are in and what we have been raised up in and to believe. And so the past and our experiences, our culture, our relationships all mold those differences and those expectations. Um, so yeah, that's an important thing to reflect on, and where, individually, um, what your thoughts are on that. Um,
That is
yeah,
very interesting because I
yeah.
feel like going back to what mommy brain is, I feel like so many of my friends that are having babies and stuff, they're like, oh, pregnancy brain, this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, yeah, that does not go away once you've
Mhm.
had the baby. It's like a permanent part of you now, which I mean, you can dive into, but I've always assumed it was just like your hormones and like you're changing because now you're responsible for this baby and like all of these things that your body has gone through in order to grow, birth, and now raise these children. And, even terms of like, and it's not always, but men are always thinking about like sex and things like that, whereas girls are like, whatever. And sometimes it's the opposite. And it's like, oh, men's brains are just wired that way. And so I think it's just like an easy thing for us to come back to and just like blame one gender or the other.
Yep.
And that is so interesting. Also, that course would have been so cool to take.
Yeah, it was a time too. Like, of course, I'm very a bit doing school full time,
Yes.
practicum, working in the public sector too. So I have a big FOMO though. So when I saw the course, I was like, oh, I need to take it because I need to build on that knowledge. So, um, yeah, it's ties into the mummy brain, and it's how much can
Mhm.
we actually fit in our brain. And probably if I did it again, I would probably pick up different things from it,
Yeah.
new points as well, right? Just yeah, a different perspective of where my mindset is now. But so without getting like too much into the science or the scans or anything, long story short of what is actually happening to the brain is that it is full and we're thinking about all the things we need to do. So your parenting brain is repurposing and there's slight changes that you're adapting to. And so you're fine tuning the inputs to your child. You're translating your infant's behavior and their needs. And so you are not the sole focus anymore. You are adapting to a new human. And so, it's a lot of change it starts in pregnancy,
Mhm.
lots of change, especially in that early postpartum period, right? Like it can take, 4, 6 months, sometimes even longer to get into a groove, and to really understand your child. And so that's why, even I say a year, 18 months is where you start to feel like yourself again as
Mhm.
your own individual, as your child's getting more independence, right? And then you can get some more independence by adapting to y- almost like a new you in a sense, right? Because
Mhm.
you're not going to be the same person with experiencing um, childbirth, essentially, right? Um, so when they actually looked at the brain, there's they did see a decrease in the brain. So typically, when we hear the word decrease, we think like a decrease in function, but it didn't respond that way. So, yes, the functional changes are occurring, but that did not translate to memory changes, cognitive changes. And then when they looked at one part of the brain, they actually saw more connectivity. And so we know how important connections are in, mental health even. And
Mhm.
so when, yeah, think about, that new connection that you're making with somebody, with that little person, right? With your baby, with their cues and picking all that up. So it's just a new way of where your brain has to function, essentially. And so, they look at if we're comparing men and women, um, really looking at the most changes do happen with the woman typically, just because they tend to be that primary caregiver. And
Mhm.
so they're going to be around baby the most. And so that is why we notice it more in moms. But they did look at dads or the man, and they did
Mhm.
see that if they spent a lot of time with the baby and really connected even in pregnancy with their partner, um, they were their brain was changing as well and doing the same thing. We just again don't notice it as much with them. Say they're going to work, right, and not necessarily staying home um, with the child at that early stage, right? So um, they did notice, like even women who have kids and no kids, yeah, those differences in the brain decrease. And again, it was the those adjustments with the needs and the changes that are happening overall in the life. Um, So yeah, engaging with the child essentially will shape that brain there. So I know you touched on, you said like hormones, right? We often
Mm-hmm.
play that into it. And that one is such a hard thing to measure, because hormones are always changing and everybody's are so different at different parts of cycles, right? So yeah, that one is difficult to actually measure scientifically, to actually see if what is affecting what in that regard. But yeah, to look at specifically mom and brain, we need to
Mm-hmm.
think about more about nourishing and supporting ourselves and thinking like, what do I actually need? So when you're in that brain fog, it's actually that you are needing something specifically. So telling yourself like to slow down, take a break, get some
Mm-hmm.
support as well, which we don't often do, right? Again, the needs are shifted
Mm-hmm.
to baby. So um yeah, that mental load is really, the a big picture too, as mental, um it's different than it was back in the day, right, of what we're all trying to balance as women especially. So that's often not talked about enough, about the additional responsibilities and
Mm-hmm.
the meal planning. Managing people is, a big one.
Yeah.
um Probably even like, it's great you said your husband's there today to watch your little one, but like sometimes even just like you arranging that, right, like that
Yeah.
is another thing on your plate, that it's like, oh yeah, gotta do this, right? So it's very easily to then, yeah, get in that brain fog, um
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, there. So
Quite different too nowadays with like before it was just women kind of stayed home with the babies and that was what they did. They did the cooking, the cleaning, the raising of the children, and men essentially went to work. And now I feel like, and not everybody, again, I'm just not generalizing, but women are working and they're loving that. They're loving their careers, and it's not always easy to put a career that you work so hard for on the back burner to raise your babies. However, the time goes by so fast, and I am like a workaholic by nature, and I always feel like I need to be doing the next thing. And so I'm on maternity leave now, but I'm like dipping my toes into all of these other things. And so it's like, again, trying to find that boundary and the balance. And it's like, I seen this one video the other day, and it was a girl of doing a speech, and she was like, you may look at me and think like, oh, she's killing it in her career. But she's like, if you see me doing that, then I am guaranteed failing or falling short on something else. So, like, not making it to your kids' sports and things like that. Or if you see me there and you're like, oh my God, she's such a great mom, I'm falling short in my work. And it's trying to find, again, that balance of just showing up for everything that you have a responsibility to show up for. And I find majority of the time it's almost more work for me to set someone up to watch the kids than to just do it myself. And I'm like, then I have to say exactly what they like, what they do, what the routine is, and have everything ready. And it throws the kids out of the element and out of their element. And I know that's a healthy thing to do. However, it's a lot of work as the mom to do that. Um, I love that they're doing these studies to really see and understand how the brain is adapting, changing, adjusting. When you, just so I understand, when you
mhm.
say like um brain is decreasing, does that just mean like it's taking away from one part and another part of the brain is working to then compensate for learning these connections and things like that? Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, so when they looked at actually the like brain matter, so there's the gray matter, there's the white matter when you look at the composition of what it's made up of, right?
Yep.
And so that's where they saw that it actually shrinks. The one area
Okay.
shrinks in
Mm-hmm.
size, and the other area does increase a little bit, and that's um I guess like the function of it is that more that connectivity. But with that decrease in the actual size of the brain, it didn't relate to any like functional changes um, in that regards. So again, is something else going on, or is it,
Mhm.
actually related to that connectivity, the needs, the adaptation in that perinatal time period? That's just what they're correlating right now, because that's the population that they were looking at,
Mhm.
right? um so yeah, it's more the actual brain size, I guess, in that sense, but not saying that it's affecting your function, overall function.
Mhm.
So it's
So
really,
crazy.
yeah, it's really just changing the narrative, right, in the language,
Mhm.
and I think that is a big shift, I guess, in um, society in general, right, on many things. Um, and yeah, just looking at all the things that we do as parents, or yeah, as mothers now, trying to balance, right, and looking at it in that perspective, um rather than mummy brain and trying to like slough it off like, oh, I'm not thinking right, or I'm not, you know I don't know, some negative thoughts to it,
Mhm.
right? And basically that I'm doing too much. If you're in that, it's like I'm doing too much. I need to shift, I need to focus on something else, or I need to decrease possibly something else that I'm doing to then, shift the needs possibly to your child, right? Um yeah, it's a lot of different when you're as the child gets older too, you're learning different personalities as well,
Mhm.
right? And their own person. And um yeah, it's constantly, that brain is constantly going to be changing then, and it ties in with that matrix sense. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, but it's the process of becoming a mother. And so it starts in that perinatal period, but
Mhm.
it's continuous throughout life. So again, you're going through all these different, as your child's going through all these different stages, so are you as that woman and that mother role, and you're learning with your child, right? So it's not a once and done, you're constantly changing yourself um, as well. So, yeah, it's just a shift. And even how
Mhm.
what we talked about at the beginning, and, the expectations and the gender roles as well that we
Mhm.
have put out there. Not, I'm saying we, me and you, but like generally as
Yeah.
the world and society. And yeah, it makes it, yeah, really hard for mothers. Um and so it's needing to support women more. I think that's one
Mhm.
of the biggest shifts that needs to happen as well.
Yeah,
Um
just normalizing a different way
yeah.
of life, right? And
Mhm.
I often say like my husband grew up in a very old school house where mom homeschooled and she cooked and cleaned and all of these things, and then it's almost like an expectation, but then I'm like, but you also expect me to work a full-time job and do all these other things, and I'm like, it's just not
Mhm.
feasible for one person to do all of those things. Like, I don't have the capability to just snap my fingers and make all these things happen, which I mean is a frustrating thing for us women too, because we again have that expectation on ourselves that we're just going to do it. Every mom has always done it, and so we're just you know seamlessly going to do it and adapt to this parenthood, And it's not until you're in it that you're like, okay, that is not possible to just seamlessly transition. And I know for my first, I had expectations of what it was going to be like. And then she's born. I'm like, okay, no, you call all of the shots and I'm just here to live in your world. And then as I had subsequent pregnancies and children, that was just all I knew. So I'm like, okay, that's how it is. And then every single child changes that. And
Mhm.
then not only if you do have multiple children are trying to adapt to one child, but now you're, two, three, four little human beings. You're evolving for all of them and all of their different personalities. And I honestly have never looked at it like that until this moment. It's I find the brain and the body and that mind body connection and pregnancy itself still just like totally blows my mind and kind of weirds me out a little bit that you just have these two ingredients that just
Mhm.
make these humans. And then it's like you birth them and you're birthing like you're giving away a part of yourself. And it's to like not expect the mind to change as much as it does is like obviously a very unrealistic expectation. And then when you can really do a deep dive into the science behind it, I think that's what really is like that wow factor of
Mhm.
like, okay, actual matter of our bodies, of our functioning brains is changing, not just physically, where you now have stretch marks or you have a little bit of a pooch or, all of these things. It's like, no, down to the biological makeup of your being is now changed.
Mhm.
How powerful, crazy, and insane is that? Just another thing we can mark up on our bodies of how incredible they are.
Well, yeah, and it's the concept of not giving, I'm saying mental health in general, but yeah, the
Yeah.
brain enough credit of how powerful it is too, and even thinking, I guess, going through um birth and just the different mindset from the first to the my third even, right? And the
Hmm.
experience being different and just being more open in that sense. And um yeah, that awareness piece, right? So
Yep.
it's almost like, yeah, a reset in the brain. It's knowledge too built, right? But yeah, it's brain health, right? It's how I said there's basics of the pelvic floor, there's basics
Hmm.
for brain health as well too. So there's um a little acronym is the words self. So it's again going back to those basics, and it can go even beyond the brain or even the pelvic floor, right? And it's the basics for so many things of our health. But just sleep, right? Sleep
Hmm.
is medicine, and that is easier said than done. When you are a parent or even in pregnancy, it happens already for some with not being able to sleep, right? And so, you sacrifice sometimes, you need to things, the housework, we always say that, right?
Hmm.
Leave it, and you need to get that sleep in, even if it's in chunks, right? Not a solid, 6 hours or sometimes 4 hours even, right?
Yeah.
Two, those 2 hour chunks can be or even less, 30 minutes. Now I'm going all over the
Hmm.
place with my numbers here. But yeah, just
I think
trying
that's a
best.
representation of a newborn sleep schedule.
Right. So yeah, sleep is the first one of that S for that self. And then the E is that exercise. So just how
Hmm.
important movement is for the body and the brain. The L is laughter. So leisure could be grouped in there as well. But just doing things that you enjoy, that yeah, bring
Mm-hmm.
you joy, the nature, music. They do find as well too, like music helps regulate that cortisol level. So especially like the mom and baby group music classes are
Yeah.
excellent for that. So it's not only the connection, getting that socialization piece, but it's also that connection with music that sparks that, the function of the brain with that connectivity as well. And then the F of self is the food and nutrition. So of course, or with being busy and a new new parent, you're grabbing sometimes things that are convenient, and it's very easy to get into the habit and not always eating those healthy foods. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, that's really important for the brain health, um, as well. There are like different like supplements, I won't go too much into it because I feel like everything needs to be individualized and not just like a
Mm-hmm.
blanket, like go and take these these supplements, right?
Yes.
Um, and um, but yeah, looking at like vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin B as well, thyroid function, iron, zinc, selenium, probiotics as well. For that gut health, there's the gut brain access. I won't go too much into that, but also, connects with your brain overall
Mm-hmm.
health as well. Um, so
I feel
yeah,
like the
there.
gut is a big thing that's coming
Yeah.
up because we've always talked about the mind body soul connection.
Mhm,
And all of my sore tummy girlies out here, it's crazy how that is incorporated. It's a fourth thing that we're now talking about and normalizing and creating awareness around is that, we have to be taking care of all of these parts, which again, the exercise and the healthy eating comes with that as well. And then a big thing I know I was talking to my provider about is how, especially where we live, everybody is deficient in vitamin D to some extent. And
mhm,
so, really, like, trying to, incorporate that as much as we can. And I think, even just going and standing in front of my window with the sun beating on me for a couple minutes, it's crazy what a difference that makes. And it's just like that warmth you know, and it has all of these cellular level
mhm,
benefits. But just to take a minute to yourself and just feel like I literally, it's like a blanket of like warm hug,
mhm,
and going for a walk or just moving. I know I've been talking about this workout called the class for like the last few weeks I've been doing, and it focuses obviously on toning and exercise, but just like moving that energy through your body. And I think it's so easy to get stagnant energy, especially as moms, where we're just focused on our babies all the time and our kids. And like the energy kind of that builds up. And it was almost like I was craving that release. And just a simple walk a day is, and like, classifies as that exercise, correct? Yes.
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like
anything, right?
moving.
Is it
Yeah.
something that you enjoy, like the class, right? Like
Yes.
many start a class and then they don't continue, or exercise just feels like work, right?
Yeah.
So it's how can, yeah, just doing something that you enjoy. And
Yeah.
if you need a break from the high intensity, just going back
Mhm.
to, yeah, walking. Walking is great. And if it's outside, yeah, that's even better with
Yeah.
the fresh air, nature
I feel
overall.
like we just, when we hear exercise, you just assume it's like, oh, go to the gym or do
Yeah.
these things. I'm like, there's so many different ways. I'm like, that's why I like the word movement. Like, just go
Yes.
move your body. for a
Mhm.
half an hour walk, for a 10-minute walk, whatever you can handle that day. Stretch, even. Like, stretching is so important, and just, create those elongated accesses for drainage and just energy movement. And, I think we overcomplicate it a lot of the time. And then when you find yourself, in a state of postpartum or any sort of mental health, it's like sometimes even just like standing up that day feels like a lot of work or almost feels
Mhm.
impossible. And so, like you said, the basics, bring it back and just move. Walk
Mhm.
around your house instead of just laying on the couch, or something, right?
Yeah.
And finding those things that you enjoy. People are coming out with new things all the time. And, like a Zumba class or things like that, where it's just like movement, but it's fun. You can laugh. And it's crazy how good you can feel when laughing, and how often you maybe don't laugh when you're going through um, spurts or journeys of mental health and postpartum blues and things like that. How did they go in on your course of how birth itself, that experience changes your brain?
Not the actual birth, they just generalized. So it
Okay.
does start like in pregnancy, the changes
Mhm.
already. Um and so it's again, you're just taking in, you're adapting, you're preparing for the birth. Um and so that piece is where they made that connection that yeah, that the changes happen already. So not necessarily the
Mhm.
birth in general. Um, I know. So they did say so. I will bring in because this is part of your podcast with loss. Um,
Mhm.
that those who experienced a loss didn't complete like that whole transfer, like that didn't get the full brain changes. So they may have experienced some, but not to the same extent as if somebody had the baby and then following up at, 4 months, 6 months. So it's almost like the brain gets stuck. And so they didn't touch on it too much, but to me, that makes sense because if you're in
Mhm.
that state of trauma, right, and you do need to process that and release that, and trauma gets stored in your body, and we know with birth trauma, the brain essentially is stuck, right?
Mhm.
So it makes sense that you wouldn't be able to proceed for that full brain change. Um, if that makes sense.
It does. Yep.
Yeah. Um, so yeah,
I can
it's
attest to that.
yeah, right. And so you need to, once people are ready, and I feel like you've done a great job at that, but that processing, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, talking about it, therapy, right? Like that is what's needed. A lot of body workers, so um like pelvic floor therapists may experience this, physio or sorry massage therapists, when they are working on somebody who's experienced trauma and it's like the tissue is just like so tight and will not
Mhm.
release. And sometimes when they finally do get the tissue to release, you may actually have an emotional release during the session. So some people may be embarrassed by that, but it's really like you're holding on to,
Mhm.
it's that brain connection with the body, right? So then it's finally that you're able to let it go. And so sometimes if you're continuously that the tissue is tight, you need to work on that's that mental piece again, and may need
Mhm.
to, talk to somebody first to um release it that way before you can actually work on the body. Um, so yeah, I don't do that body work, but I have heard through, multiple, additional continuing education that I've done, and this
Mhm.
one body worker, she does like a birth summit every year. And so that's a lot of her work that she does. And yeah, she gives examples of that all the time, that, wasn't able to fully treat this mom until she worked on, the birth trauma side of it, or
Mhm.
to finally get that release in the body as well. So yeah, that brain connection piece
Mhm.
is there as well.
Yeah, when I went for acupuncture the other day, because I'm working on like releasing my jaw, because I do hold on to all of it right there and
Mhm.
my shoulders and everything. And she had said too, she was like, just like warning you, it doesn't happen super, super often. But as we get in there and start working, you could, yeah, get emotional and you just never know what's going to come up. And then as she like put the needles in my face, they were literally just vibrating. She was like, "These needles are working." I'm
Wow.
like, "Oh, yeah." Like I know I hold it in
Mhm.
my tissues and my muscles and like it's so painful and so uncomfortable
Mhm.
and you know, just even working through it in therapy and stuff definitely helps my
Mhm.
mind and all of that. And it's crazy how much like because your therapist will say like, okay, where do you feel that in your body? Where is that coming up? And I'm like, what the hell do you mean about that? And now
Yeah.
that I'm working through birth trauma and stuff, I'm like, my whole body's on fire. Like I feel it everywhere. Like, but I'm just more aware now. And
Yes.
it's like, okay, now I understand what you mean. Like my chest
Yeah.
feels like someone's lit a fire. Like what is happening?
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. That is, but
Hmm.
that awareness piece, right? And working through that, and it's not necessarily that it's ever going to be gone though, right? So it's
Hmm.
that expectation too, and it's something, you're building that resilience, and that is one of the biggest things with mental health, is having that resilience, having that support set up, that when you need it, this is my plan, this is what I need to do, right? um so yeah, I love, yeah, what you're doing, and I think it's great. It will help others too, and that outlet, that support. Um
Hmm.
and if they're not, ready to speak to somebody yet, maybe this will be that it's like, okay, I can do that now, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even just coming back to that connection, right? We always say like community and finding others who can relate.
Mhm.
And I'm going to keep throwing that connection word in because it's a relationship and it's somebody who can meet you where you're at and understand and you know, yes, people can say, "Oh, you're not alone. You're not alone." But it's like, well,
Mhm.
I feel pretty alone right now. Like I don't if you don't know anybody else who has been through something similar and then once you're able to connect, it's so weird to say like it brings a sense of comfort, but it does. And
Yeah.
it's like it still feels yucky coming out of my mouth that it's like, oh, finally I met somebody else. Not that I would ever want them to do that, but
Mm.
it's like, yeah, you just feel that sense of, you're sad for them and your heart's broken, but it's almost like a little bit calm that it's like, okay, now I finally have that person that I can go to and bounce things off of and, who can relate and, just yeah, meet you on a totally different level. How does like all of this brain matter changing and stuff like um do they talk about like baby blues versus postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, like how does all of that kind of show up?
Yeah, so not so much, again, in detail. It's again
Mhm.
just focusing on, like, there are the risk factors for mental illness and all the factors that, so that play into it. So if you
Mhm.
have that history of depression or anxiety, any type of stress, early life challenges, any interpersonal violence, if you have a poor relationship with your partner, that lack of social support,
Mhm.
even like housing, income, other health problems. So all those things just playing a role. And so, um, it will affect that connection. It may affect, right? Not saying that it absolutely, if you have those risk factors, that you're going to develop a mental illness, but yeah, it puts you at a higher risk.
Mhm.
Um, but it may interfere then with how you respond with your child, that responsiveness to their cues, of picking them up at several of the different stages, on how you're interpreting that cue and that self-regulation, right? um so it's really just looking at, like, not that you're not failing as a mother, your brain just needs more support. So that's what it always comes
Mhm.
back to. Even if, the brain fog, the mommy brain, you are needing more support. You are balancing, doing too much. Um, and so, yeah, I feel that mental health piece, or mental illness, particularly, because everybody, to a certain degree, we all have our own mental health that we could work on, but not
Mhm.
all of us will experience mental illness, right? There's those varying degrees, of severity. But yeah, really having those supports, in place is what's essentially needed, and to help build that resilience, that we touched on. Um,
Mhm.
and so lots of, with mental illness, they don't have, aren't able to do that shift of the mind or have that awareness, right? So, um, that's where cognitive behavioral therapy is often one of the first lines, to work through that, on that piece, initially, which will then eventually build on the other things and make that connection with baby, in that regard. Um, but yeah, they did talk a little bit about, you know, eh, medication, other medications too. Um, so yeah, it's always the risk versus benefit, like taking a SSRI,
Mhm.
whether that affects the child or not as well. There's certain ones that are safer to take, of course. Yeah, like even during pregnancy, right? So, um, it's typically, yeah, better to be taking that medication, than, for mental health. Um,
Mhm.
and then just monitoring, baby after. Um, there's lots of talk, oh, even determining what taking that type of medication for anxiety, depression, risks for the child of developing like autism, language, intellectual
Mhm.
disabilities, but um, there was no link there of what the research they had found. Yeah.
Yeah, just circling even back to like the loss aspect, and
Hmm.
like you're kind of hard stopped at that one transition period, and then where your
Hmm.
body expects you to have this baby and you don't.
Hmm.
It's like it was literally like even my arms felt so heavy, like I was carrying a brick, even though I did not have a
Hmm.
baby in them. And it's like from a physical aspect, I'm craving that feeling. And like when you do skin to skin and chest to chest, like the regulation and everything, like your brain is craving that and searching for it.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it does act as a hard stop, because then it's like, well, why aren't I getting this? And if you have support from like your other children and your husband, like that connection, it's not the same as if you're transitioning to like this newborn and all the feelings and emotions that also transpire from that. Like I'm hooked on that. I'm like, that makes so much sense. And then it's like, your brain, it's like, well, why can't I just like not move on, but move
Mhm.
forward? But it's like, because your brain is never getting these f- things that it's craving and that it was supposed to have.
100%. Yeah. And so a lot of the studies that they looked at too was only with one child. So after one, so
Oh, okay.
we didn't look necessarily at, a second child, a third child, and the changes that can
Mm-hmm.
occur after that too. It was primarily, yeah, for first time parents um, experience. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know. Again, I think you're juggling more. So I think it's bound to happen in
Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, with them saying that it's, the different stages that you go through as well, and that it doesn't necessarily resolve that brain um size, it continues as you're adjusting. So um adapting, I should say, to everything else that's happening.
Yes. It's always a
Yes.
work in progress. So you did mention things of like that self acronym and like ways
Mhm.
that you can kind of take care of yourself that way. But what are ways that we can like support, like as an outsider, like if our friends or our sisters are going through it, ways that we can like educate our partners on supporting us when we're kind of going through that, things, how can we communicate that to other people and support women that are, having a tough going through these changes? Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think the partners, I think it really depends on where they are in the understanding of mental
Yep.
health, right? You
Hmm.
can't, if they're not open to it, they aren't going to hear you, right? They, if they don't believe that it is a real issue, that mental health's not important, um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that part is a tough one. I think again we're getting better as society to talk about it, and even men's mental health,
Hmm.
the significance surrounding that. um but yeah, I think as women we can support each other, and that we have, especially with being a um you empathize more with if you're a mom yourself. But yeah, just trying to,
Hmm.
it's, especially say you have a friend that's not, um, that's always canceling or picking up, or not answering you right away, right? Um, and sometimes then that could be annoying, but everybody is going through their own battle, right? And is just trying
Hmm.
sometimes day by day. So not to give up on them, and keep encouraging them. And um, we often say, I think there's a shift as well too. But when you're going to visit, say in the postpartum period, and the woman is always like, what can I get you, right? Or those offerings of, hey, you go shower, or you go do something for you, and I'll watch the baby, right? um which again, it's that societal shift of how we can support the mother and not the mother catering to everybody else, right? Or if she wants to have like a
Yeah.
little nap or something, right? That you can, I know you want to go over and visit with them, but um, yeah, really, how can you support the mom in that regards? Um, but yeah, and going for walks together, encouraging different support groups, if you know them in your
Mhm.
city or town, um, and just having those open conversations as well too, so that they are comfortable enough, that encouragement to go talk to your provider and discuss it, and that medication
Mhm.
is okay and that therapy is okay, and just normalizing um all those things, right? Because many or some may still be ashamed to go on medication or even to go talk to a therapist. um, so yeah, it's really just that
Yeah, I feel like there's still
normalization
such
piece.
a stigma around that. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the
yeah.
stigma that surrounds the medication, the
Mhm,
therapy, and socials is a huge one, and that's why I think
mhm,
it's so important to have somebody that is willing to share these pieces on social, because majority of the time it's like your highlights, your this blissful
mhm,
newborn period. And we all, I think, struggle a little bit with you know postpartum mood changes or all of those things, whereas it's not as talked about as the blissful moments, and the we're only really sharing those good parts. And so to be able to
mhm,
again come back to that connection and know that, okay, this mom also has hard times within the good times, and so we can experience both too. And it's not all going to be perfect, and it's not all going to be sad. And in the moments that it's good, it feels like it passes by quick. Whereas if you're kind of in, a darker time or really going through that, that's the part that feels like it's forever,
mhm,
in that it's you're the only one who's going through this,
mhm,
when basically every single mom who's ever walked this earth has had some, you know, severity of it, whether it's mild or it's severe. It's like, but it's still a thing. And
yeah,
so it has to be a conversation,
yeah,
right? Like,
100%. Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, there's no other way. There's no other way around it. You have to go through it, and we have
Mhm.
to have that support and that connection, regardless of what our situation really looks like.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's also to teach your children all the different emotions, right? I'm terrible actually for it,
Mhm.
of saying it's still the common, like, mad, sad, happy, like it goes
Mhm.
beyond that for our emotions, and it is just a moment, right? It's not, and so I feel
Yep.
many have been searching for happiness, and it's like then you get discouraged, or yeah, you're it's finding the joy, right? Those little glimmers throughout your day, because things are constantly
Joy. Mhm.
changing. So yeah, I've shifted that. I don't like using the word happy now, because again, it's temporary. It's that
Mhm.
shift to joy, right? And keep going back and finding those throughout your day, and then you may have it may be a great day then, in essentially, and going back to
Yes.
the self, right? um because yeah, you're constantly changing, and like you said, even if it feels like it's temporary, it is very temporary. Even if
Mhm.
it seems like it's dragging, or the day, or yeah, and that there's help available. So um like you said at the beginning,
Yeah.
maternal mental
I
health.
love that mind shift change. Mhm.
Yeah. um and so lots of things, with the brain too, that it's like, well, my brain doesn't do that, or I don't think that way, right? But it's to challenge yourself, and that it's
Mm-hmm.
like you have those components, you just have to build those skills. And so it's that shift again. Okay, I can do it, but not right now. Or I have the skills, but I just need to
Mm-hmm.
practice. Right? So it doesn't always just come natural to somebody. Um, it's that continuous work and those continuous habits to foster the self and the
Mm-hmm.
connections, and the resilience, um, essentially. So,
Yeah.
um,
And it is such a
yeah.
version of self-care. And it's like we
Mhm,
put it, we make time to wash our face every day or take a shower every day or something like along those lines that is like physically taking care of yourself. And it's just as important to, I've started with like that 516 or 314, whatever breathing technique you want to
mhm,
call it.
mhm,
Um and learning to belly breathe again. And it's like,
mhm,
even just before bed, if I do it 5 times, okay, that's 5 times today that I really took 5 deep breaths
mhm.
and relaxed myself. And then
Yeah,
it becomes a habit. And then, habits, what do they say? How it takes 30 days to create a
about
habit, or
30
what is
days.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah, to create a
yeah.
habit. And, you know, so that's something to keep in mind too is, yeah, it's probably going to get discouraging if you're a week in and you're still trying to figure it out. And nothing is a quick fix, which is
Mhm.
frustrating. Because as a
Yes.
society, we want things now. Like we want them yesterday, even
Yeah.
though we're just discovering them today. And so, really putting the importance on that of like, no, I am worthy of this. I'm worthy of glowing skin just as much as I'm worthy of feeling joy at least once a day
Mhm,
or once a week, whatever we're chasing right now, meet yourself where you're at. And we need to kind of stop that comparison piece of like, well, she looks really happy. It's like, yeah, okay, she might look really happy in that picture, but
mhm.
did she, was she crying right before or right after she took that picture? You'll never know. And
Yeah.
so, we need to be gentle on ourselves.
Mhm. And so there's um some therapists will dive into like parts of yourself. Um and so they talk about like who's driving the bus. And so it's like, is it, oh, I'm not sure what happened. Um are you still there?
Welcome back.
Man, I'm like, did we lose it again?
One glitch, not bad.
Maybe that's saying to wrap it up.
Oh, I love this perspective.
Oh
And like,
man.
I think that course you took is so
Mhm.
cool.
Oh yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a different way to frame it, right? I did have a post, oh gosh, probably like 2 years ago now,
Yes.
and it was about like changing the narrative of things that we say to ourselves, and it was more I think it was in my menopause post. It's like perimenopause, but lots of things that respond like very similar, that you can do in postpartum already. Um, and so it was a lot of that
Hmm.
narrative shift about in your mind. So yeah, I think this course did that for me, and just yeah, really what that mummy brain fog really is. And um that awareness piece in yourself, right, to building that up. And if people don't know how to bring in that awareness, if they're saying they don't know how to do that, like mindfulness, meditation practices. Again, some people are like, oh, don't know how to start that, right? But just
Mm-hmm.
just begin and continuously do it, and it will become that. Then you can bring that awareness piece. And I talked about it with the pelvic floor, right? If people don't have that awareness, meditation is a great way to learn how to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think just as human beings too, we want like the why of things. We want to
Mhm.
deep dive and understand. And so I think it's easier as society to understand these changes that come with postpartum and all of that when you can explain that, yes, this is literally how your brain is changing, and kind of give yourself a little bit more grace. And it's like, okay, that is literally the physiological, biological way it's going to be. And we just have to adapt to these changes and know it's not something you're doing. It's like it's out of your control and it's a normal human change. And again, just kind of change the narrative with it all, and acceptance of like, you know adopting medication, or finding a therapist. And if you have to take medications for a little bit, it doesn't have to be forever. Last time we talked is when I had like just started mine, and like they've literally changed my life for the better.
That's great to hear. Yeah,
Mhm.
you have a lot of other things, I think, in your toolbox too that
Mhm.
you're using, but yeah, nothing. Some just want to go on medication too, and I would just caution against that as well, just because
Mhm.
nothing works in isolation and you still need to do the
Yeah.
work. But yeah, sometimes you need the medication in order to be able to do the work as well, right? That
Mhm.
mind shift change, that balance of those neurotransmitters. And so yeah, just knowing that the therapy piece is really essential to the
Mhm.
healing and everything with as well. So yeah, medications can help, but they're also not necessarily the end all be all in
Yeah.
it as well. So no, that's so great to hear. I love it.
Like it definitely
Yeah.
takes, yeah, a lot of work. And then,
Mhm.
it kind of helps you get to those appointments that you need, like the
Mhm.
therapy. And, just once you realize that it's like not the only thing that's going to help,
Mhm.
it's important to really utilize all of those other tools. And we just have to like break the stigma that's around them.
Mhm.
There's a huge stigma around it. And I know I even had that for myself when I first started, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be one of those people. And my therapist was like, well, what's those people? I'm like, I don't know. Or normal, I said. And she was like, define that for me. Because as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned, nobody is, in quotations, normal. And
Mhm.
you just have to figure out your new normal and how to um, live and
Mhm.
to the fullest, right? And
Mhm.
not just settle for half ass.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I love that she got you to define things because,
Hmm.
again, everybody's going to have a different view of what, yeah, the word normal for one, but the
Hmm.
expectations are on yourself or from others, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those definitions can help. And, um, yeah, there's no wrong answer for most things. I will say that,
Yes.
right? Like there's so many different ways that you can do something, right? So there's always options, and then you need to make the decision of which one you want to pick, right? And
Hmm.
if it didn't work, well, let's try something else, right?
Yeah.
Um And so I think that's the one of the things with social media now. It's like, try this, it worked for me, right? And it very
Hmm.
well may work for the next person, but not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
And everything is trial and error, right? Or I don't
Yeah.
like using the word error anymore, but trial it out and change and adapt and
Yeah.
um in that sense. So yeah, with medications, anything, right? It's
Mhm.
try something new, and if you don't like it, okay, that's fine. You
On
tried
to the
it.
next thing.
Move on. Yeah. Sometimes even just the time of day, right, can make a difference
Mhm.
of like when we touched on meditation and trying that, like sometimes it is the time of day where it's like, oh, this worked so well for me today,
Mhm.
right? And it's hard sometimes to replicate that, but not necessarily giving up with it.
Mhm.
Keep trying, right? And um when you
It's
talked
a
about
lot of adapting.
yes, yeah. And when you talked about the breathing, right? And you focus on and doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, or some do it like box breathing, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, you can, once you have those tools, then you can go back to them during the day and then things become easier in that
Mhm.
sense. It's that motor planning um path with the brain, right?
Yeah.
Resetting that when you're taking that big breath, that's your vagus nerve that is activating to help bring more into that parasympathetic nervous system
Mhm.
so that rest and digest. And so by doing that, those breathing, that helps, you know, hone into that a little bit more.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
love how that's such a big thing that's circulating now is getting out of that fight or flight and entering that rest and digest, getting like lowering cortisol levels and things like
mhm.
that. I think I am obsessed with it, but that's because I'm very much in a position where I need to rest and digest here. Something's gonna give. But just like having people and individuals who are taking the training and are finding such a passion in it and are willing to share that with people and again meet where we're at and have all of these different tools to offer to people, and I'm always down to hear what people have done, and I either incorporate it or I don't. I try it or I don't, and it's just nice to know how many options there are and that even other people are out there doing the work as well. It's not an isolating thing that just one person is, trying to stress less or like really take care of himself. Like it's a theme right now and I hope it's a theme for the rest of, you know, our lives that we can prioritize these aspects of ourselves and um kind of get out of that mindset of, the less you sleep, the more you grind, the more successful you're going to be. And that, I really went through that phase and now it's like, no, I'm the priority now,
Mhm.
not my job, not, you know, socializing 24/7 and keeping up with messages. It's like, no, my mind in my life is priority. And if it's not, I'm not able to show up and do all of these other things.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things is when people can come and express and state that they need help. Like that took
Mhm.
a lot for you
Mhm.
to, get to that point. And so as healthcare professionals, we need to, yeah, have the resources available and give them all these options. Sometimes the options can be overwhelming, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, just starting with one thing and building, and that continuous follow up is important, and that building on those supports in your community.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
And finding providers too, right? That
yeah,
actually you vibe with and get to know you. And then, as they get to know you, it's like, oh, this would really work for you, or maybe this wouldn't. So let's try something else. And, it's I find it a little less exhausting when I know I'm going into an appointment with someone who is willing to hear me out and, wants the absolute best for you too. You're not just another patient that's coming through the room today. Like it's,
Mhm.
we're focusing on, more than something that's just a physical pain. Like it's literally taking over everything. And, that we have to be so delicate with that.
Mhm. I think that collaborative care is
Mhm.
important as well. And I don't think it happens enough with different professions, often, sending a suggestion to the primary care provider either, right?
Mhm.
Some may not be receptive to it. I will say that when I am practicing, I would love that if there's something that I'm not thinking of and
Mhm.
your therapist thinks of it, and not saying I'm necessarily going to do it. It depends what it is,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
But having those conversations and really building that circle of that continuity of care and
Yeah.
that whole person of the different disciplines that should be involved in your care, not just
Mhm.
one person as the expert, right?
Yep.
Um, so yeah, you need that team for you, and that team approach is that communication as well, um,
Mhm.
of how to help you better. So, um,
I think we show up a little bit differently in different appointments too, and
mhm,
depending on, what the vibe of that provider is and things like that. So we're always seeing like a different side of people. And so, yeah, when they can, pinpoint something and make suggestions, and whether or not you adapt it right away for that person or
mhm,
that idea, but it's like even opening it up for you to research and kind of have another tool in your back pocket if it ends up, being something you want to do, and just evolving as a provider for people. And it's like, no, like we're always changing. The world is
mhm,
changing. And, yes, we can come back to the things that have been around since the Stone Age. However, there's so many other things that have come up and that will continue to come up. And I think having providers that are willing to learn that, and I know a heavy focus right now for me is like providers being educated in like bereavement,
mhm,
and how to support women when they lose at the bedside, and for
mhm,
nursing staff to do that if a social worker is not always available, having a social worker that's comfy enough to, be in the room with these families and really provide appropriate care. And that goes right into the postpartum care. And how is that OB showing up at that appointment where, it's your first one since you've lost your baby, or it's your first appointment, you have your baby, and your mental health is not good. It's like,
mhm,
how can we make these moms feel comfortable enough to be like, yeah, actually, no, I'm not good? Or
mhm,
what does good mean? Define that for me. Like, what are the signs and symptoms I should be looking for? And I said, like, when I was still doing postpartum, I was so in depth with what to look for these moms. And, I always say, like, you feel fine and then all of a sudden you don't, but you're so far into whether it's the baby blues or it's the postpartum depression, or anxiety, that you don't even realize it. And then, I want to give you the tools before you even begin to experience it, to be able to pinpoint that moment and not wait 6 weeks and then finally see your provider, but you've been experiencing this for a month now. So it's like, okay, like we need to find that, balance and, awareness prior to even giving birth. Like, here's what you can expect. And it's not going to show up in this textbook way. There's multiple ways that it can show up. And especially, like you said, what are your pre existing mental health concerns? What are your, what are you more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like susceptible to
yeah,
experiencing.
Yeah.
And that's all going to play a part too.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think again, once those specialized areas are seeing it possibly so much, you lose
Yep.
it a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Of being that human side of it and that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely, or if you're not seeing it a lot, not knowing how to then handle it. But as, yeah, healthcare providers, those conversations that may be difficult, you need to be able to have them. And if
Yep.
you're not
Absolutely.
comfortable having them, then you need to, I think it's education. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think, I don't know if I said this the last time, but um, like doing, so another perinatal mental health course that I took, I feel like after that one, I really was able to like have the conversations about intrusive thoughts and about yeah, just the assessing for suicide even. So
Yep.
before, yes, I did it, but I didn't dive into it too much because I didn't know how to discuss it, how to handle it, right? If somebody
Hmm.
responded. And so yeah, it's asking those questions. They're important. And or even pelvic floor stuff or women's health in general, right? Like I am, when somebody's like too much information and I'm like, no, I need to know more, like I'm don't like, if you're willing to share that with me, like I'm good hearing it, right? Like
Yes.
people who, or even the pooping when you're delivering, right? Like
Yeah.
people get embarrassed about that, and you shouldn't be. I know it's a private
Hmm.
thing, but as in that setting, that is that's okay, right? Um
Yep.
you should be able to tell your provider how you're feeling um without judgment, right?
Yep.
Um
If you can't, find a new one.
yeah.
That's my motto. Find a new one.
Right. So yeah, I think again it all comes back to, yeah, education, I think.
Yep.
And you need to be a continuous learner, right?
Oh my
um
gosh.
but yeah, there are ones that do specialize in the um I said birth trauma, right, specifically, or perinatal loss. um Everybody should have a basic, though, if you are working in that field, for sure. um yeah, did we cut out again? Did I lose you again? Oh my God. Uh,
Welcome back again.
am I? Am I back? Okay, wait, I'm trying
I
to
can
send.
hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay.
But if I can't see you, that's fine.
I tried to send a message to
There
you.
we
Maybe
go.
that's why. Oh goodness.
I love this. Okay. Well, we're almost Oh my God. I feel like if we ever do this again, we got to do it in person.
Oh my gosh, I think so. I'm like, oh, it can't be worse than last time connecting.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
it's because we said it.
I think so.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yes, thank you for providing the space though to talk about maternal mental health. And I think you had introduced it at the beginning with Maternal Mental Health Week. So yeah, that
Mhm.
globally, that is always the first Wednesday of May, is Maternal Mental Health Day. And so there's across Canada, there's always, well, again, it's a global
Mhm.
recognized, but I'm going to speak across Canada. There's different, organizations and events that highlight maternal mental health. So no matter where you're watching from or listening from, I would just encourage people to reach out locally.
Mhm.
One of the events that is Canada wide is called Flora's Walk. And so it's on its fourth year of it. So there's walks across Canada to just bring awareness to perinatal mental health, um, that education piece. It is a fundraiser, and it is held in memory. The walk is for a mom that lost her life to untreated, undiagnosed postpartum psychosis. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's a great, to bring that awareness, and especially to postpartum psychosis. We talk about postpartum depression, anxiety, but postpartum psychosis is treatable and it is a medical emergency. So just knowing, what to do if you were in that state, that
Mhm.
it's to call 911 or go to the hospital. Um, and so, yeah, there's walks all across Canada. So I would encourage people to look in your community, the closest one. I know, like, if we're speaking Alberta, Saskatchewan, there is in Saskatoon, Regina, Lloydminster, Luseland area, Red Deer, Calgary. So there are Flora's walks occurring. Um, and then other things happening locally in Lloyd. The Lloydminster Maternal Mental Health Initiative Committee, it's their 10th year. And so they're putting on the Flora's Walk is on one day, that will be on May 9th. The day before, on May 8th, is Maternal Mental Health Day events. So it will be at the Prairie North Plaza and at Midwest Family Connections. And so it just highlights different community organizations that offer perinatal supports. So yeah, I hope, if anybody's wanting more information on those events, there is the Facebook group for Lloydminster Maternal Mental Health Initiative that they can check out, and it will have all the details about, the exact location and time for the May 8th and 9th. Um, Lloydminstermentalhealth.ca is a great resource as well that can connect people to all the different counselors, and there's a bunch of online resources, and it does have a lot of some of the tools that we touched on too,
Mhm.
that people can look for on there. Um, if there is something specific, of course, they can reach out to me and I can try to help direct people as well. But yeah, that website has a lot of great resources, and Midwest Family Connections is one of the great resources that offers the support group for moms in Lloydminster, the Mother's First program. So specifically, those struggling with mental illness, and building that connection. So yeah, that's a weekly group that they run. There are, of course, other little groups, not necessarily geared towards mental health, but just the connection piece, right? So yeah, finding your community. I know we always talk about that in motherhood, and people are,
Yep.
where's my community? And
Right.
yeah, it is. There are, you just need to, the first step, like I said, is reaching out and connecting, and whether it's with your provider, whether it's with a counselor, Midwest, right? They should be able to direct you further to local resources.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And you're a part of that board and stuff, right? Or that committee, I should say.
I I am, I guess but through my job in the public sector, I am, yes. At certain businesses, if you go to the Facebook group, if you are local, we do have little bookmarks that you can pick up. So here's a little sample one.
Cute.
So yeah, it's a good, we'll have some of the links to it, and talks about the Mother's First program and everything. So yeah, we hope people will come out for there's 3 events actually. I didn't talk about the one, but on the website or on the Facebook group, it will share all that information.
Sounds good. Well, I know I'll be going to check it out here.
Oh,
We
wow.
have 1 month and then we have all of these. So I will absolutely probably see you there. It'll be
Amazing.
so exciting with no glitchy internet in between us.
No, I will be disconnected from technology probably that day, which will be good.
Right?
It's good to unconnect that way sometimes too.
I agree.
Mhm.
Well, we really did this episode. Technology was not in our favor today. However, we
No.
persevered. We showed resilience.
May have been a
And I
little
think you,
scattered, I guess, in
yeah,
things that I
that's
said
okay.
too, but oh,
We'll make it work. I'll make it absolutely perfect. And I cannot wait
no, you
to
will.
share all of the information. And yeah, again, that week your 2 episodes come out, which is so special. Just kind of shows, you're so well-rounded and an amazing resource for these moms to have in their corner. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Please take a moment and on whatever app you're listening to us on, press that follow button to stay up to date with all future episodes. If you or someone you know are interested in being a guest on the Beyond the Birth Story podcast or a sponsor, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at Beyond the Birth Story podcast and send a message or fill out that contact form. I would love to connect with you. As always, remember to be gentle, kind, and hold space for yourself when you need it.